The first time David saw Karen, she was standing on her porch with a clipboard like she owned the entire street. But David didn't care. He had just bought his dream home, a peaceful property just outside the HOA boundary, free from their endless rules. But Karen didn't like that. "You may think you're not under our HOA," she said, walking up to his driveway, "but you're technically still part of our community." David laughed it off at first. He wanted peace, not drama. But within a week, letters started arriving, fines for unapproved lawn height, non-compliant mailbox, and even unsanctioned trash can color. None of which applied to him. Still, the harassment kept coming. One morning, David found a bright red note on his door: "Final notice, property seizure in review." That's when he realized Karen wasn't bluffing. She had somehow convinced the HOA board that his house belonged to them. As he read the letter, his phone buzzed. A neighbor texted, "Karen's bragging she'll have your place cleared out by next week." David's calmness cracked. He'd served 12 years in the military, handling chaos with patience, but this? This was personal. He looked at the stack of fake fines, took a deep breath, and said quietly to himself, "All right, Karen. Let's see how far you'll go." He didn't know it yet, but what would follow would shake their quiet suburb and expose the dark side of HOA power. The next morning, David walked to Karen's house with his camera recording. She opened the door, smug and unbothered. "Oh, recording me now?" She sneered. "Just keeping a record," David said calmly. Karen crossed her arms. "You'll regret ignoring our notices. The board already voted. Your property will be reviewed for seizure." David tilted his head. "There is no board over me, Karen. I'm outside your HOA." But Karen smiled wider. "That's what you think. We've extended our boundary lines." David froze. "You can't just do that." "Oh, we did," she replied, shutting the door in his face. That night, David began digging. He visited the county records office, and sure enough, nothing had changed legally. The HOA had fabricated documents to scare him. The next day, he printed every piece of proof: real boundary maps, signatures, and the official seal. He sent them to Karen with a note: "If you keep this up, I'll file a federal complaint for harassment and document forgery." Instead of backing down, Karen doubled her efforts. Mysteriously, David's mailbox was found open every morning. Trash bags were ripped and scattered. Neighbors whispered that Karen was making an example out of him, but David didn't fight back, not yet. He just smiled, installed cameras, and started keeping a detailed log, because David wasn't just a homeowner. He was a man who believed in discipline, and when you push a soldier too far, you awaken something calm but unstoppable. Karen's obsession grew. She began patrolling the street every morning, taking pictures of David's property, reporting violations to an HOA board that had no legal power. She even told delivery drivers they couldn't use his driveway, but David stayed silent, watching. Every camera he'd installed captured everything: Karen trespassing, snooping, even lifting his mail. He collected hours of footage. Then one morning, an HOA letter appeared, stating, "You have 72 hours to vacate before enforcement begins." That was the final straw. David calmly walked to the police station, handed over the footage, and explained the harassment. The officer, skeptical at first, played one clip. In it, Karen was caught on camera opening his mailbox and removing mail. The officer leaned back and said, "That's a federal crime." David smiled faintly. "I know." A case was opened immediately. But David didn't stop there. He sent the footage to the county's legal department and the Postal Inspection Service. Meanwhile, Karen noticed police cars slowly circling the neighborhood. Her confidence started to shake. Still, she told everyone, "He's bluffing. He's just trying to scare me." But the next morning, when uniformed inspectors showed up at her house with warrants, Karen's smirk finally disappeared. The HOA board gathered outside Karen's home that morning, whispering nervously as officers questioned her. The community that once admired her control now stared in disbelief. David stood at his porch, sipping coffee, watching silently. One officer walked over and said, "Mr. Reynolds, thank you for your cooperation. This investigation will continue. You've done the right thing." Karen yelled from her driveway, "This is harassment. He's lying." The officer didn't respond. They loaded boxes of documents from her garage into evidence bags. By evening, news spread through the neighborhood. Karen was under investigation for mail tampering, fraud, and impersonating an HOA officer. Still, the real twist came later that night. David received an anonymous email with scanned files showing forged boundary maps and HOA letters, all digitally signed by Karen. He forwarded everything to the authorities. The next day, Karen's house went dark. Curtains closed. No one saw her outside, but David wasn't celebrating. He knew bullies like her rarely stop quietly. Sure enough, 3 nights later, his security alert pinged, motion detected, backyard, 2:47 a.m. The footage showed a figure creeping behind David's fence. The streetlights caught her blonde hair. It was Karen carrying a flashlight and a bag. David immediately called the police. Within minutes, a patrol car arrived. Officers caught her hiding near the back door. When they opened the bag, they found spray paint cans, glue, and fake HOA notices. Karen was arrested on the spot. But as she was taken away, she screamed, "This isn't over. The HOA will fight back." The next morning, David's phone buzzed nonstop, neighbors thanking him for finally standing up. Dozens admitted they'd been scared of Karen for years but never dared to speak up. For the first time in months, the neighborhood felt peaceful. The fake fines stopped. The mail was safe. And yet, David couldn't shake one question: why had she done it all? A week later, the answer arrived in an official envelope. Inside were old HOA meeting minutes. Turns out, Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor, she'd been secretly collecting illegal HOA fees for years. David's refusal to join had exposed her scam, and that's when everything clicked. She hadn't been protecting the HOA. She'd been protecting herself. Karen's arrest sparked a full investigation. The HOA was dissolved, and several members resigned in disgrace. The local paper ran a headline, "Fake HOA Scandal Exposed, Homeowners Evidence Brings Down Corrupt Board." Reporters tried to interview David, but he refused the spotlight. He only said, "I just wanted peace." Still, the media frenzy wouldn't stop. Karen faced multiple charges and even tried blaming the HOA president, claiming she was manipulated. But the evidence was overwhelming. Every document, every fake fine, every photo traced back to her. Weeks later, the county officially confirmed David's property was never part of any HOA. Standing in his backyard, David finally smiled. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. For the first time, he felt at home, but before he could go inside, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered. A calm voice said, "Mr. Reynolds, this is the Postal Inspection Service. We just wanted to inform you." Karen's case also revealed several complaints across state lines. "You've helped us uncover something much bigger than you think." David froze. He'd started this to stop one woman. But apparently, he'd uncovered a nationwide HOA fraud network. Months passed, and life returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could. David planted flowers, repainted his fence, and started mentoring local veterans. The street that once felt hostile now felt alive again. Then one afternoon, a new family moved in across the street. They waved, friendly and genuine. David smiled back, but as he turned to go inside, his doorbell rang. A mail carrier handed him a certified envelope. Inside was a letter from the Department of Justice, thanking him for his cooperation in exposing a fraudulent HOA ring that had affected over 300 homeowners nationwide. David set the letter down, looked around his peaceful street, and chuckled. "Guess I really did buy the right house," he said. As for Karen, she pled guilty. Her face flashed briefly across local news. No more control, no more clipboard, just silence. David leaned back in his chair that evening, hearing the soft hum of cicadas, feeling the quiet peace he'd fought for, and that was when he realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes, the loudest victory is just peace, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.